This is The Naked Patient, Beyond the Operating Room. Listen as Dr. Nicholas Howland talks with real patients about their real experiences with plastic surgery.
All right. Hello, and welcome to the Naked Patient Podcast. My name is Dr. Nicholas Howland. With me today, Mr. Dakota Mahan. Hello, sir.
Well, hello there.
You have not had surgery from me.
I have not.
That makes you a unique guest on this podcast.
One of the few.
Yeah. So, one of the only ones I've not seen naked.
That's probably also true.
That's usually a weird thing. I'm sitting on this podcast and whoever's across from me, I've seen them naked.
How can I be on the Naked Patient Podcast if I've not been naked?
Exactly. One day. No, you have had some cosmetic surgery though.
I have.
Tell me.
Yep. So I had back in 2021. Yeah, June of 2021, I had some hair surgery put in. So I noticed that both of my grandparents, both of my grandfathers on both sides, mm-hmm. my brother, my uncles, my dad, everybody in my family has had early hair loss. Mm-hmm. And I noticed it in my brother, who's 3 years older than me. And so I was 24 and I started noticing it in myself too. And I wanted to get on top of it now, get it out of the way. And so, yeah, I jumped in on that real early and I've enjoyed it. Yeah. It's been great.
I didn't even know you had it. You have great results. Male pattern baldness makes no sense to me. Like, not biologically, not physiologically, not evolutionarily. I don't understand male pattern baldness. You know how this works, right? Mm-hmm. The hairs on top of your head respond differently to hormones than the hairs on the side of your head.
They're genetically different, yeah.
Yeah. So it's fucking stupid.
Yep.
At no point in evolution did having less hair on the crown of our head make us live longer or less susceptible to being eaten by a predator or easier to hide. I don't understand.
It makes no sense. No. Like, why would there be a reason to lose hair on the top of your head?
Yeah, it's literally one of the few times that I think God just wanted to be a dick. Like, this is what we will give the men. That's probably what it was evolutionarily. If we had gorgeous hair like I do... Sorry,
you do have some good hair.
It's my only good feature, so I've got to promote it. But if we all lived with beautiful locks like this, then that's what it was. It was to limit procreation. Because men would just constantly be desirable and you couldn't get new men. Found it. That's why. That's
the reason. There it is. I don't know though, but like,
you had to put a stop to women wanting to have sex with men so that the new batch could come in. Otherwise,
that's what it is. Yeah. Older guys, they have money. I mean, they've got everything else, right? The young guys need to have the hair.
Yeah. And we can't have reverse polygamy. Women can't be having multiple husbands. That doesn't work.
I think you just solved one of life's greatest mysteries, just like that.
I think so. Let's just finish the episode. We'll call it good. There's probably half the audience hates me already for this part of the conversation. Okay. So but tell me that process, because I actually, since joining this men's group, have had, and just in general with my age, get a lot of men approach me asking if I do this procedure. And the answer right now is yes and no. And I'll get to that. But like, tell me your process. What did you go through? How did it go?
So I really enjoyed it. I went in for my consultation. They kind of talked about everything. The same thing that you just talked about with having genetic differences in the top of the hair versus the side and how many grafts you might need. And so there's two methods that they can do. They can do a strip method that they just cut out a chunk out of the back of your head, suture that back down, and then cut that chunk into 1 to 3 follicles at a time. Mm-hmm. And then they count each of those follicles, and then they'll poke spots in your head for your new hairline, wherever it is that you need to place it. and then go in with little tweezers and place each individual follicle, right? So it's like a day-long operation.
That's how I was trained.
Yeah, you're there for like 7 hours, right? The other option that they do is they have a little machine that's almost like a suction cup thing that takes each individual follicle out of the back of your head or the side, right? And then you go through and it takes it and places it where you want it. So it's like pluck, place, pluck, place.
Yeah.
That one's a little bit more expensive. I actually went with the strip method because I found somebody who has done it for years. He's done great, has great results. If you do get a scar from it, they're willing to like go in and like tattoo over it and make it look more like skin. I actually I can shave my head down almost like bald. Like I do a 1 on the sides and back and you can't even tell where it was. There's a little bit of an indentation when it almost looks like if I wore a hat for a couple hours, took it off and have a little dent, right? Yeah. 5-6 days later, you can't even see that little dent.
Yeah. So the strip method is how I was trained. I was trained by a guy named Alfonso Barrera. If you buy a book on how to perform what we call microfollicular hair transplantation, which is transplanting 1 and 2 follicles at a time, it's written by Dr. Barrera. So I got trained literally by the guy who wrote the book on hair transplant. He does it down in Houston. He's still practicing. One of the nicest men you've ever met. But also one of the weirdest surgeries to go attend because patients are wide awake the whole time.
Yeah.
He just numbs the scalp in the area where he's going to be working. You take the strip, and then he's got 3 or 4 assistants that are sitting on the back under microscopes and cutting this strip into 1 and 2 follicles for him to then go and graft. And so he'll do big, what we call mega sessions, which is between 4,000 to 6,000 grafts in a single session.
For reference, I had 2,300.
Yeah. And that
So
4,000 to
double that.
6,000 is, for him, is about 6 to 7 hours. So the first one of these cases I saw, we get 3 hours into it. I'm bored out of my mind at this point. You see the first 10 grafts placed, and you're like, okay, cool, we're done. And he says, okay, we're going to get some lunch. And so he orders lunch into the break room. And so we leave the OR, me, Dr. Barrera, and the patient gets up from the operating table. He's got like half his head transplanted, and we all go sit in the break room and eat lunch together. And then it's like, hey, you want to finish your surgery? Sure. So we all go back into the operating room and finish this guy's operation.
Word for word, that is exactly how mine happened.
Are you serious?
When I very first walked in, before I even started down, they said, all right, what do you want for lunch? We're going to order that. And then it'll be here partway through the surgery. And they came in and they want you to eat a lot because I guess the healthier you are, more nutrients you get or whatever, the better it's going to take, the better recovery you're going to have. And so it was literally just like that partway through. I think we had the strip out. I think it was all sutured down. I don't know if we had poked any of the holes in, placed any of the new grafts or anything, but sometime in between there, I just walked out, went into the break room and just sat there and ate lunch with the doctor and the rest of the staff. And
so can you imagine if all surgery was like, can you imagine if I was wake up a breast augmentation patient? I'm like, okay, one side's done. We're going to have some lunch now.
Then we've got nap time followed by
you're back to sleep. But I do think it's a really cool operation. The body's pretty phenomenal.
It is.
You can take hair that responds differently to hormones, put it in a new spot of the body, and it blows my mind.
It's phenomenal.
So you're happy with that decision?
Very happy.
Changed your life?
Yeah. Honestly, what it was for me, it was a confidence thing.
Yeah.
And getting that out of the way done now when I'm still in, my mid 20s, early 20s even. I feel like I've been a lot more confident with who I am, how I hold myself and present myself as opposed to, a year and a half ago. And I've had a lot of other changes within that time, but this was kind of the start of the changes I began to make.
Yeah. That's a hard thing for a lot of guys. And I mean, especially when it hits in your 20s, you're like, God, all of a sudden I've got this male pattern baldness. That's a hard thing. So just to go back and close the loop, I said I sort of yes, sort of no, do this operation. For me, that strip method, follicular transplantation, I have zero room for that in my practice. I do not have the bandwidth, nor do I want to do those operations. And so I don't offer that. However, I have purchased a machine, and it's been basically on back order since COVID.
So 2 years, 3 years, it's just kind of been sitting there.
Have not had this machine. And I think it was supposed to be here by early next year, like first quarter next year. We kind of like, we had purchased, and this isn't just their issue. Like, we had purchased and then we pulled back and then we repurchased. So it's both parties' fault. But the machine, though, the nice thing about that is, because the machine is doing the work and the operation, the company sends a tech with the machine. And it's usually either a PA or a nurse practitioner who this is all they do. And so you, as the surgeon, you come in and say, okay, here's the hairline where we're going to mark. This is where I want the follicles placed. You'll numb that area up, and then you leave. And the tech and the machine do the job for the next 4 to 5 hours. So I can be operating in the next room and have somebody else having this operation with the tech or the PA kind of managing that surgery. And so that method makes a lot more sense to me, both financially, efficiently, and all the ways.
Yeah, so you literally have to do nothing for that 5 hours.
I am staying in the building in case something goes crazy with my patient who's under a local anesthetic and wide awake. And I mark and make sure the machine does its job. Huh. And I can be doing other stuff.
You'll have to let me know how that goes if you get that machine finally.
Yeah, I think it'll be I think it'll be a great option for our male patients. And so it's coming.
That'll be cool.
Stay tuned.
I like that.
Okay, so we got the plastic surgery part out of the way. Are we good?
Yep. Just had to make sure that it was on.
This is what happens when you interview Dakota. He still has to do the sound checks and the video checks. So plastic surgery's out of the way. That makes you an official guest of the Naked Patient podcast.
There we go.
What do you want to talk about, dude? Tell me the most interesting story that comes to mind.
Most interesting story that comes to mind.
Because that's what I've listened. That's what I've realized this podcast is. We started out with a very plastic surgery bent focus, right? Did it change your life? Did it not change your life? And I still that's very adjacent to it now. Now I want I'm interested in my patients. I'm interested in their stories, their life. So we've established that you've been a patient of plastic surgery. But like, what's a story that's changed your life?
That's a good question. I've always tried to just like be a good person, to do the right things, and like just be in integrity, be honest, right? Mm-hmm. And recently I had a friend ask me, your friend as well, Megan, she asked, why are you such a good person? Like, why are you so kind? And what came to mind was in third grade. It goes back to like third grade.
Okay.
I had some friends, a bunch of friends, and one of them, Dalton, we were playing out at recess, third grade, and he had some like Scooby snacks. If you ever had those as a kid, right? They're just like little graham crackers. And I remember I lied to him and I said, hey, last time I had some crackers, I gave them to you and you said that you would give me yours next time. And he's like, oh yeah, of course. And so he gave me his crackers when I had lied, right? Mm-hmm. And I kind of made fun of him, joked with him, told him like, oh, you just gave me your stuff. I didn't actually give you anything. And it kind of became a thing of a Dakota promise, is what he and the rest of the friends called it at the time. And they're still to this day like my best friends, but they would joke around with me of like, a Dakota promise is when you like promise something, but it's not actually like true, right? It's not real. And for whatever reason, that like stuck with me from third grade all the way to now being 25 years old. I didn't want that. Like I didn't want somebody to have a Dakota promise and have it mean that. So I tried to change it to be like, me wanting to keep my word, right? With everything that I do, everything that I go into, I wanted a Dakota promise to be an actual promise, something that you're going to get, right? So that's why I've tried my whole life since then to be the best that I can be and just be impeccable with my word. Just do what I say I'm going to do, whether that's for other people, for me. And so I don't know, that's kind of an odd answer for your question of a story, but it's especially with this last year of me and you being a part of the men's coaching group that we are the they, that was like a huge part that like going into it, I was like, yeah, like I've got that down. Like I can be a man of my word because I've tried to do it since third grade, which sounds kind of weird.
Yeah.
So
good job, Dalton, for shaming Dakota into
Right?
integrity for all these years. No, those little moments like that scattered throughout childhood shaped so much of our life, and there's such a butterfly ripple effect. It's kind of mind blowing. I had a friend who, I don't know why this story is coming to mind, but probably because you mentioned third grade. This was one of my very best friends growing up all through school. And she and I were just like Forrest Gump, peas and carrots. Like we hung out all the time. And we got into junior high school. It was junior high school. And that was when she kind of took a turn for, not for the worse, but she just started, down a path that was different than mine. I was, still kind of the good LDS kid and trying to do the right thing. Sometimes did, sometimes didn't. And all of a sudden she was, smoking weed with people and drinking with other people. And, as the, kid growing up in Utah was like, oh, don't do those things. So I judged the shit out of her. And B, started to distance myself though. And somewhere in high school, a lot of kids go through that, right? But somewhere in high school, she became the one who was like the next step further. And I think her parents put her in one of these like Utah teenage homes to help remediate her. And she came out of this home, and this is the way that I remember the story. It may be different. But she came out of this home, and there was a fireside that was held basically in her honor. Like she got up and told her story, kind of how she'd gotten into drugs and doing the wrong thing, and she'd gone to this home for months and had gotten better. And everybody was there to hear this story. And I think that night she went out and got high with her dealer.
Oh.
And since then her life has been a struggle, like in and out of places, in and out of rehab, and not an easy life. And I wonder what it would have taken to just steer her a little bit more the other way. You look back in retrospect, and it was not one decision, but like where could she have been pushed just a few degrees the other way?
I don't know. That's always an interesting take on those things, because I feel like in the moment we do the best with what we have at that time, right? And so with where you were at in your life at that time, you did what was comfortable for you based on your experience, right? Yeah. And now you may have today with where you are at now, you can look back and say, well, maybe if I could have done this or could have done that. But that's all because of your experience leading up to now.
Yeah.
Everything that was done then because of where you were at.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
It's like that that story. So you have some piloting experience.
I do.
And there was a story, I don't remember where the story comes from, about the pilot who was off by like a degree, like
1 degree.
1 degree, and he ends up thousands of miles off of his destination because he was off that single degree. And so for me, all of that is much easier in retrospect, right? But I think that's why we as parents, when we raise kids, can be so quick to like freak out over small things that our children do, because we've experienced and have seen how those can become that 1 degree shift. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
What I'm trying to say?
For sure. Huh.
And so for me as a parent, I'm constantly juggling what things I want to make really vital and really important for my kid, as like, hey, these are hard lines that I will not budge on, versus things that I can be like, this is my kid growing up, this is my kid learning.
So do those vary from kid to kid, or is it a flat line across all of them?
I think they're totally different human beings. I think it varies from kid to kid.
Okay.
I think you have to.
Yeah.
It's a hard thing to do because you don't want to treat your kids differently, but they're completely different human beings. And so you kind of have to, like, you don't love any of them differently, but you have to treat them different.
No,
they got different personalities and different behavior patterns.
I definitely get that. I've got great parents. My brother's 3 years older, my sister's 3 years younger, and I'm right in the middle. Mm-hmm. And my brother had a curfew of like midnight. I had no curfew. Like, as long as I woke up my mom and told her when I got home so she knew I was there safe. Yeah. No curfew. And my sister's curfew was pretty much like 3 p.m. after school, you come right home. And no, I've seen that in like our personalities. I didn't need that curfew because I was able to have the self-restraint to, I guess, do what she would want me to do and be the child that she wanted me to be safe, do the right things, right? My sister was very wild. And she kind of needed a little stricter hand on that stuff. Mm-hmm. So I think that makes sense.
What's the worst thing you ever did as a kid?
Worst thing I ever did as a kid? Oh, boy.
Since we're on this tangent of kids and growing up.
What's the statute of limitations on like federal crimes? I don't know. Like, I'll go ahead and share it, and then if I want to cut it out later, I guess.
Yeah,
but the most of what I did as a child wasn't bad stuff. It was stupid stuff. Right. Oh, yeah. I grew up in a really small town, 500 people. The big town was, 15 minutes away and was 7,000. Mm-hmm. So we did a lot of, fireworks, explosives, lots of those things. Right. Yeah. Me and my friends got bored a lot. And one day we ordered some lock picks online, learn how to pick locks. And so we would just like see what we could pick into around town. So we started like picking into his house, which was super easy. Lock ourselves outside, pick into his house, and we'd be good. Okay. And then we're like, well, the neighbors have like the shed. Like, what's in the neighbor's shed? We'd go pick into the shed and just like find a bunch of old antique stuff. But the worst thing that I did was I ordered something online. I don't know what it was, a kid. So maybe some clothes, shoes, video games, something, right? I don't even remember. But it was shipped to the post office, which is pretty much just this small building like a tiny little building that has one exterior door. You walk in, you have the post office boxes, and then there's a door on the inside that leads to like the back office with the packages, right? And it was the weekend, and I wanted my package, and the post office was closed. And I was like, well, you know what? I've got my lock picks. Like, I'm just going to go into that main door that's always unlocked, pick into the main office, get my package, take it and go. Like, it's my package, so why not, right? So I did just that. And I went in, picked myself into the post office, went into the back room, wandered around, found my package. Like I said, a very small room, probably about the size of this room that we're in now. So 15 by 15 maybe. And that was that. And on the way back, you can, when you pick a lock, you can pick it unlocked, or you can also relock it. Okay. Just twist it the other way, just like a key, right? Yeah. And so I relocked the door and left. So it wasn't until, years later, after I was out and in college and was talking to my friends, I was like, oh, that's like federal property. That's not a good thing to do. Just
breaking and entering on federal property.
But like, what could they charge you for? I didn't really, I guess breaking and entering, but like I also relocked it and I didn't take anything that wasn't mine. So I don't know. That's probably like the worst thing that I did.
Yeah. You might not want to share that. I don't know. We'll look up the statute of limitations on that. We were the same way. We were dumb kids growing up, right? And listen, we all had I hung out with Jimmy Rex growing up most of the time. And the two of us together come up with some pretty dumb ideas. We come up with some really good ideas, but sometimes we come up with some dumb ideas. Like we used to have Roman candle wars where everybody would get a Roman candle and we'd be in a church parking lot and we'd shoot Roman candles at each other.
Yeah, we do those a lot too.
Yeah. How nobody got like an eye taken out or
beyond me
or lit on fire. I have no idea. What's funny, years later, I was in Alaska with my ex-wife. This was before we got married. She grew up in Alaska, and we had gotten a bunch of fireworks, and we were going on the beach, and her brother and I were gonna light some Roman candles off, and he's like sitting in the sand. I'm like, dude, we gotta have a Roman candle where you just hold it. And he's like, I'm pretty sure you're not supposed to. I'm like, no, it's fine. I used to do it all the time. And there's literally a sign, a warning label on Roman candles that says, do not hold the Roman candle. He's like, it says right here not to hold the Roman candle. Nah, don't worry. Trust me. So I hold the Roman candle just to demonstrate to him how cool this is so that it's safe and we can then have a war. First time ever in my life, I had done multiple Roman candle wars. One of the balls doesn't launch and it just burns out the side of the tubing and burns a hole into my palm while I'm holding it. Almost ruined my whole Alaska trip. I spent the rest of the trip with my hand bandaged up. And this poor kid's like, yeah, you're an idiot.
No, that's like... That's right in line with what we would do. We'd do Roman candle wars. Mm-hmm. We'd make, homemade bombs.
You're always stepping it up to federal offenses to go. So the worst thing at least the thing that I hold the most shame for was we had a group of us one night that decided we were going to go out and smash mailboxes.
Okay. Another federal crime.
No, yeah. Also not okay. And here's the worst part about it. Okay. I won't incriminate any of my friends because we all got in trouble for this. But the worst part about this is I was too chicken shit to even actually smash a mailbox. I just sat in the back telling them which ones to hit and cheering them on. saying stuff like, ooh, that one's customized. Let's get that one. So later in the night, we got caught because when we set out to do this, we said, no, we're not going to hit anybody we know. And unbeknownst to us, one of the mailboxes that my buddy requested we do happened to belong to his ex-girlfriend. And a police officer lived across the street, saw us doing it, called in the plate number and everything. So later that night, we were all staying over at one of the guys' house, and we all got phone calls from our parents at like 1 a.m. Get your ass home now. And all of us had to go to court. All of us had to do some sort of remediation. I got a very gentle slap on the wrist because I didn't actually damage any mailbox. I was just one of the witnesses. So I think all these guys had to do like legit community service, and I just got kind of a slap on the wrist. But I think I feel more shame over the fact that I didn't do it with my friends rather than that I was even there. How terrible is that?
Huh. Well, I don't know. Like, did you just like want to be involved more with your friends, or like where does that shame from that revolve around?
I had a good time just hanging out with my friends, but the shame comes from like me not, I don't know. You know, you want to be on that same level as your buddies. You want to, and yeah, it's weird.
Did you get in as much trouble as they did or less?
Less.
Okay.
Yeah,
so maybe the
less.
shame's tied to something about, even though you were there contributing as much as they were, you had less reprimanding.
Yeah, it could be. I was just as culpable.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was the worst thing I think we ever did as kids. And ripple effects, though. Every one of those guys is doing good things with their life. Nobody's out continuing to smash federal property.
So where do you think that change happens versus kids doing something wrong, smashing mailboxes, lying about sharing crackers with your friend, right? Like I'd say that we've both become good people. We're doing good things. Mm-hmm. Where does that change happen? Where is it that we realize, oh, that wasn't good, and try to like change, as opposed to somebody who doesn't, somebody who continues forward doing, making poor choices and escalating how far they take things?
Well, every one of us had parents or people in our lives who loved us, which I think is an important part, but not the only part. I mean, you remember the story about the girl I shared who went down that dark path. Like, she had a ton of people in her life that just loved her. Like, there was not abuse going on. There was not anything really that should have kept her going down that dark path. But love is an important piece of it. But I also think it's an internal thing that at some point you've got to decide, I'm better than this, or I'm not going to make these poor choices. And whether that's fighting addiction, or whether that's, trying to eat healthier, or commit to the gym, or live in any type of integrity, you at some point have to get honest with yourself and say, this is not who I am. And this is, and you move that way. I think at our core, I believe at our core, every person is good.
I'd second that.
I mean, and I think, though, that every decision we make that takes us away from that puts us into a little bit of chaos. And I think that's where a lot of anxiety and depression and anger and those types of feelings stem from, is not being at our core. And the more you stray from that, the harder it can be to get back to it.
Well, and I'd add, the harder it is to recognize that core.
Mm-hmm. And some people will lean into those negative emotions and those negative feelings. And it's not because they're a bad person. It's because they either don't remember what the good person is, or they don't recognize what the good person is, or it scares them.
What I think is so cool, though, is when those people do recognize it, they make the change and they come back, seeing that light in their eyes, the happiness that they've found again, and how comfortable they are with who they are. I love seeing that. That is such a cool thing to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Seeing men change for the better. I say men because we're part of our men's group. I love seeing anybody change their life for the better. God, what a cool thing. That's why I love my career so much, because I think it helps people make that change. And so I get to see people trying to change themselves for the better every single day. And that's pretty cool.
That is cool, because it's almost like that start. I told you the start for me of changing with my confidence was having my hair surgery. Mm-hmm. And seeing that start with your patients, the change that they have, I imagine that a lot of them feel this in a similar way that I do, of like, this is a start of where I like turn around and do something different.
Yeah. So the men's group, we're the they, I think one of the cool aspects or perspectives that I have is that I knew Jimmy before he founded this group, and I've seen the changes he's made in his life. He's put a lot of money and a lot of investment into personal growth and personal development. And so a lot of people just see who he is right now. And they're like, oh, this guy seems legit. He seems like he knows what he's talking about. Well, I know that before Jimmy, and I know even before that, when we were schmucks in high school, smashing mailboxes or shooting Roman candles. And so there was a time in my life where I was like, oh, people are changing. People are putting those old patterns behind. Jimmy's doing a really good job of becoming a better person. I want that. And so that for me was really the key to, I can trust this group. I can be a part of this group because it's working, obviously. Mm-hmm. Which also, I'm grateful for that perspective, but it also makes me admire even more you guys who have joined the group without knowing or without seeing that change in Jimmy. You guys were just drawn to his energy and his message now, and kind of hoping that it had something for you, that it would help change you as well.
Yeah, that's exactly why I joined. Mm-hmm. When I approached Jimmy and wanted to work with them, I let him know, hey, like, you've kind of teased at this coaching group. I don't know what it is that you're doing, but like, I need to be a part of this. There's just something about, like you said, that energy that he brought to it. And going on that, what you had said about seeing that change in him, it reminds me of something that I may have shared on Mark's podcast. I don't remember, but sometime in high school, I saw it in a video, and it was talking about being your best self, and how we hear that all the time, right? Like, be your best self. Or be yourself, not even be your best self. You just hear be yourself, right? And I feel like that's poor advice, because if Jimmy was just himself as opposed to like being his best self, who knows where he would be? Who knows where either of us would be had we have done that and just listened to be yourself. And the best way that I've heard it explained is make yours a good self.
Yeah.
And I just really like that, because I don't know, it sits well with me. Like, we're in control of who we are. And at any time that we want to, we can start that change. We can recognize the choices that we're making are either good or bad. We know us, and we're in control of that. And anytime we want to change and make ourselves better, we can do it.
Yeah. I love it. Well, Dakota?
Well, Nick?
That was a random show.
That is. Went into a lot of places.
Thanks for coming on my podcast, Dakota.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me on. It was a treat.
Absolutely. Anytime, buddy. Thank you so much for listening to The Naked Patient Beyond the Operating Room. I'm Dr. Nicholas Howland. Please remember that every patient who appears on this podcast has consented to discuss their story and their surgery on the podcast. That way we remain HIPAA compliant. This is a free podcast. The best thing that you can do for us is to leave us a review online. Let us know what you liked. Let us know what you'd like to hear. Let us know how we can improve. If you are curious about anything related to plastic surgery, you can reach out to me on Instagram at Dr. Nicholas Howland, and I typically respond there, or you can reach us at the office at 801-571-2020, or we have an online form you can fill out at the website, www.howlandplasticsurgery.com. Any of our coordinators would be happy to help you. Thanks again for listening.
Thanks for listening to the Naked Patient Podcast. Stay tuned for the next episode. Till next time.